Thanks for staying with us on the news at 1. Now, the South African National Roads Agency is said to be re-evaluating its funding model after the group's annual 2016-17 report showed that Gauteng motorists are still not paying e-toll fees. The agency reported e-toll collections at 1.862 billion rand. They received an additional grant of 372.9 million rand from Treasury. SANRAL CEO Skhumbuzo Macozoma joins me in studio now. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. There are reports that SANRAL has written off 3.6 billion rand off consumers' debt. Can you confirm that for me?
No, that is incorrect. Yeah. Let me first start by thanking all the Gauteng citizens who pay their toll fees on a daily basis. We appreciate that. You are keeping us afloat and you are enabling us to continue to do our work. We have had to reclassify our debt, of course, in terms of the profile of the debt. And the 3.6 billion that is interesting to everybody is the debt that has a profile of being very difficult to collect. And so in the ranking, it would probably be the one that would give us the most difficulty. But we certainly haven't abandoned it and will continue to pursue avenues to collect that debt.
Why are you pursuing this debt so heavily if consumers have basically said to you, we're not interested in paying for e-tolls?
Well, it's very simple. We are governed by the Public Finance Management Act. Whoever owes government needs to pay, and government cannot abandon that. And secondly, the SANRAL Act makes it a criminal offense for you not to pay toll if a toll road has been declared. And those two reasons make us pursue the debt, because we also cannot abandon it.
Okay. There's been talk that the Transport Minister is looking at the viability of e-tolls and trying to change the model as it's not working. What discussions have you had and what's the latest on that?
We've done work in the background. Of course, we've been with this challenge now for the past 4 years. We've done an analysis. We've looked at options in terms of scenarios of what can happen to this scheme as it currently exists. And we've presented those to the Minister. From an original 4 scenarios that were created for him, 2 have been prioritized as the most feasible. Now, I won't be able to discuss those at length because the Minister plans to, first of all, have consultations with the Premier of Gauteng on that. Secondly, engage with the Deputy President, who was tasked with the responsibility of looking at e-tolls and finding a solution. And lastly, the Minister would want to table it in Cabinet. So very soon, because the decision on e-tolls will be a political decision, the Minister will table it in Cabinet and we will all get guidance how the scheme is going to proceed.
Have you thought of other ways of trying to engage consumers in Gauteng on this issue? Because it doesn't appear that the methods where they're saying, you know, there can be prosecutions if people don't pay, trying to encourage them to pay, they don't seem to be working.
Yeah. In our engagements, basically going into our new strategy 2030, I've emphasized that there's no crusade at SANRAL to toll at all costs. We have to find each other as South Africans in a conversation to be able to determine how road infrastructure in this country should be funded. So if there's one positive that has come out of the e-toll debacle, I think, is that we've brought the discourse to the fore and everybody can now engage on it. We've adopted an integrated funding model now. In doing the analysis of how SANRAL is funded, we see that being a state-owned entity, the lion's share of our budget will always come from the fiscus. And we will continue to chase the fiscus as our primary source of funding. But evidence shows that private finance has played a significant role in supplementing public funds. And we won't abandon that. Let's have a conversation where it's appropriate to use private finance. And let's agree as South Africans from a policy perspective where we can apply the toll perspective or policy strategy. We also see opportunities now for us to generate our own revenue. And over the medium term, we're going to be basically pursuing all 3 strategies.
Tell me a little bit more about the Vision 2030 and how you plan to include particularly young black female entrepreneurs in that vision.
Essentially, Horizon 2030 is about where roads are going to go over the next 13 years. The first deliverable of that strategy is going to be to develop a fresh 2030 roads plan. That plan will be able to tell us across all provinces which roads will be prioritized for improvement, which roads will be streamlined to make sure that they contribute positively to the economy, and which roads are going to be developed to improve access to communities and so on. Within that strategy document, you've got a transformation framework that we've developed. And the transformation framework says the first thing we must do is develop a fresh policy on transformation because we've never had one, to clearly articulate how South Africans are going to participate in the capital that we give to market on an annual basis. We've been criticized that a lot of our work goes to established industry, so the transformation policy seeks to normalize that. we basically have now put forward a policy document which we are currently consulting across the country, across all stakeholders, because we learned hard about consultation and we want to talk to South Africans. We want different grades in the construction industry, grades to participate in the work that we give out. We are going to ensure equity in the different groups of construction grades, because a lot of our work has been going to grades 5 to 9, with grades 1 to 4 largely being ignored. We want to give opportunities to women, to youth, to businesses in localities where our projects happen, as well as in rural areas. We have now decided that for every national road project we do, there's going to be a community development project attached to it. And we want to exclusively reserve opportunities for community development projects to be for emerging contractors and SMMEs, largely of the local area where we're going to be working.
Okay, when the report came out, we saw that there was 424.9 million rand incurred due to non-compliance with prescribed procurement processes. That's a massive amount of money. How do you make sure that, because you are a public company, a state-owned company, that we don't see this going forward, we don't see these millions of rands being used what seems in an irregular manner, and perhaps in a manner that you can't properly explain?
It's something that equally concerns board, it equally concerns management. We've got no appetite for irregular expenditure in the company, and we're going to get a lot harsher in the years that come for people that basically would be responsible for irregular expenditure. I must qualify though that we've got 404 million this year, which is a drop from 1.1 billion last year. All of these figures are figures of tenders that were stopped some 3-4 years ago. So what you're seeing now is, because we issue tenders for a period of 3 to 5 years, this is the tail end of those contracts that were awarded some 4 years ago. So it's not fresh tenders that were irregular, but it's those tenders that are now coming to an end. My suggestion to government, because I know my colleagues are listening, if anybody spends on irregular expenditure, that equivalent amount should be what is deducted in your budget the next year. Maybe we'll get serious about this issue.
Skhumbuzo Macozoma, CEO of SANRAL, joining me in studio there. It's time for a